Alright, I'll admit, that's a little too on the nose for me. Welcome back to So You're Interested In, the show where I break down an artist's discography in order to give you, the viewer, the best possible jumping off point in order to get into their catalog. On this episode, let's look at the pop-punk band Fireworks. Getting their start in Detroit, Michigan in the mid-2000s, this band has gone on to be revered in the pop-punk world. Straying from the sonic path that was generally set by that era, Fireworks incorporated their own blend of musical stylings to the fold, typically utilizing an overall softer tone. Sure, this is still pop-punk that we're talking about here, so don't expect any elaborate ballads or swift time signature changes or anything crazy like that. Instead, Fireworks lays out some incredibly solid and easily accessible material that can still be enjoyed to this very day. Well, that's the general case as long as you don't identify as a super religious conservative. Fireworks actively hate that stuff, and that becomes pretty clear through their anti-religious lyrics that are littered throughout their catalog. As long as you're an open-minded, caring person, then you'll get along with Fireworks just fine. This band is still active as far as I'm aware, as they did release a really great 2023 LP that we'll be talking about in just a little bit. So let's get right into things, as I recommend 2 albums and 3 individual tracks so you can finally start listening to Fireworks. As per usual, we're gonna start with the albums. The first Fireworks record that you should listen to is their 2011 effort, Gospel. This is about as thorough a pop-punk and emo-pop mix can get, as the entire sonic soundscape is pretty and accessible while still being high-octane. These songs whip by you in their own unique ways, as they all feel full of purpose, reeling you in closer and closer with clever lyrics and wonderful arrangements. With the opening track, Arrows, we're given a glimpse into their rich vocal harmonies and sleek instrumental production. I'll be honest, this is not an era of pop-punk that I particularly enjoy, but Fireworks beats those allegations. The hook is just too big and fun to deny. You'll find yourself belting this out every time it comes on. Not to mention, the instrumental arrangement is more complex than their pop-punk contemporaries, helping this to avoid becoming stale. This trend continues with the track We're Still Pioneers, a song that bursts through the gates with its massive riffs and even bigger hook. It's a very young person's anthemic tune, forcing you to flail around throughout its duration. Plus, the backing vocals that wail, whoa, whoa, in the hook gives We're Still Pioneers an even bigger energetic edge. Then comes a song like, Oh, Why Can't We Start Old and Get Younger, which basically answers the question, what if Fall Out Boy had good tones and even better song structure? There's some solid riffage here, with these short, snippy guitars driving this thing along. I'd even go as far to argue that this is one of David McKinder's best vocal performances on the entire record. He just sounds so large and in charge. Before we move on to the next record, I do want to talk about the penultimate cut, I Locked My Time Capsule. God damn, this thing is a fucking ripper, and not even in a pop-punk way, this thing just goes. The overall rhythm and grooves are outstanding, making this one of the heaviest tracks on the project. The production and mixing really makes this one shine bright, as the instruments are all used to their absolute max potential. Gospel is a very accessible album for all the right reasons. It obviously has pop sensibility, but it doesn't allow itself to be dragged down by the other pop-punk records of the era. Instead, it forged its own path to become a compelling LP that can still be enjoyed by any new Fireworks fans. The next album from Fireworks that deserves a proper spin is their 2023 LP, Higher Lonely Power. This was a surprise release, but it's most certainly a welcomed one. The band has grown immensely since they released Gospel, and Higher Lonely Power exemplifies their evolution wonderfully. No longer are these basic, cut-and-dry pop-punk tunes, as the songs on this project are varied and intricate. The album opens up with the song God Approved Insurance Plan, which is instantly angrier than anything on Gospel. It's clearly a post-hardcore track with some of their grittiest instrumental tunes to date. It's sludgy and disgusting, coming at your neck with a rusty knife. McKinder's vocals are also nastier than ever, as he digs deep to find his most damaged voice yet. This sonic approach does end rather quickly. As we move into the next cut, I Want to Start a Religion with You. The guitar tones here are very reminiscent of the guitar work done on the Killer's landmark album Hot Fuss. Pair that with the backing synth pulses and robotic percussion, and you get an incredible sonic experience. Plus, the lyrics are introspective and poignant, taking heavy influence from religion as most of their material does. And to be honest, this song was the spark that finally convinced me to make this video, if that pushes the needle for you at all. Eventually, we get to the hilariously named Jerking Off the Sky. The cool as ice vocals skate across the elegant arrangement that's a weird mix between Radiohead and My Morning Jacket. Weird comp, I know, but it makes sense to me. The lyrics address address the capitalist pigs in our society who leech on and take everything from us, forcing us to toil and work until there is nothing left. Jerking Off the Sky is one of those songs that makes you take a step back and really appreciate just how impressive this band is at writing killer cuts. Finally, I'd be a fool not to mention the song Blood in the Milk. This thing has the hook to end all hooks, with Mackinder belting out the line blood in the milk and pesticides on the honey. It's a massive track in both its approach and its execution. If this is what modern pop punk is, then you can count me all the way in. It's a masterclass in being big and grandiose without being hollow and pointless. And I think that can be said for the entirety of Higher Lonely Power. This is a really interesting record that you are not going to want to miss out on. I mean, come on, it didn't crack my 50 favorite albums of 2023 list for no reason at all. And that will conclude our album segment, but don't you go anywhere, because we still got some tracks to cover. The first Fireworks song that you should toss on is Cardellini from their 2006 EP, We Are Everywhere. This song has no right to be as heavy as it is. Sure, it's still pop punk, but goddamn this thing smacks, especially the pounding percussion. It has an interesting instrumental flow that switches up at the drop of a hat, or more specifically, it stops on a dime when Mackinder says stop in the lyrics. In a lot of ways, Cardinelli reminds me of the material that's found on Something to Write Home About by the Get Up Kids, which is always a welcomed comparison in the Forever Spinning household. This is one of their earliest songs, so they don't quite have the mixing and production figured out yet, as the backing vocals are a bit buried, but overall, Cardinelli is a fantastic cut. I can all but guarantee that you'll love blasting this track. Next up, I think you should check out I Support Same-Sex Marriage from the 2009 album All I Have to Offer Is My Own Confusion. First things first, this entire record is great, and I highly recommend giving it a full spin. But back to the song at hand, I Support Same-Sex Marriage is such a great pop punk cut. It doesn't reinvent the wheel, but it does take the best aspects of that genre and uses them to the fullest extent. Don't get me wrong, it's still a very 2009-ass song, but it still rules. The lyrics in particular feel a tad outdated, as Mackinder sings about how religion in this country has forced people to turn away from who they truly are. This in and of itself is a very important message that still rings true today. But overall, it doesn't hit as hard as it probably did 15 years ago. I'm not trying to shit talk the song, as I do agree with this message entirely, and I clearly liked it enough to mention it here, but I do feel that it's a bit of a time capsule more than we want to admit. Regardless, it's heavy and hard with some solid riffs and grooves, so don't skip over I Support Same-Sex Marriage. Last but certainly not least, be sure to listen to Decline of a Midwestern Civilization from the 2008 EP Adventure, Nostalgia, and Robbery. Now, for whatever reason, this song is meant to sound like it was recorded in a live setting, and while I do think it's a little gimmicky in its execution, I do think that it actually helps the overall song. There are constantly beer bottles clanging and bar patrons talking in the background as Mackinder tries to break through the ambiance. His performance even sounds a little timid, much like a local singer getting up to the mic for the first time. Even then, it still sounds great, especially when the vocals all harmonize and the song kicks into full gear in 2.5 minutes in. It's definitely not what the other songs that I mentioned sound like, but Decline of a Midwestern Civilization is more than worthy of your attention. And that will conclude my video covering Fireworks. Links to all the albums and tracks discussed here will be located in the video description box below. Scroll down even further to the comments section where you can let me know if you liked any of the albums or tracks that I picked here. Maybe you're already a huge Fireworks fan and you think that I completely butchered this video, that's fine, go to the comments and let me know. If you're like me and you can't stop talking about music, then might I recommend joining the Forever Spinning Discord server. We're talking old music, new music, hot takes, new trends, undiscovered gems, and all of the vinyl that you can ask for, so if that interests you, then please tag along. There's also a link in the description for that as well, so please feel free to join, we'd love to have you. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to Forever Spinning. I make videos just like this every single week, along with other shows that I do like Stacks of Wax, Where It's At, and The Variety Show. By subscribing, not only do you help me out, but you'll also be the first to know when these new videos drop. And yeah, that is going to do it. Outside of my usual reminder for you to go out and support your local record store if you are able to, along with the local artists in your area, and well, till I see you next time, happy listening.